Hi, this is Ted. Today I'm going to be talking about exaggeration within especially the New Apostolic Reformation and faith healing aspects of the Charismatic Movement. There's a lot of exaggeration going on. For example, stories being told, raising the dead and healing the sick, one story after another, and there's several ways to break these stories down. First of all, you do got to understand that a lot of these people exaggerate their own illnesses and stuff before they even get there, even before they get on stage, before they tell the testimonies. How do I know that? Catherine Kuhlman herself admitted this. I believe it was on People magazine back in the day, but she did admit that people exaggerate their sicknesses. And doctors will tell you the same thing. People tend to exaggerate how bad they feel and how bad things are for them. So when you get that on stage, you're already dealing with an exaggeration. Now add to that, somebody like Catherine Kuhlman will take the story and add to each story that is told on stage, so it sounds even better. So there's even more of an exaggeration, but there's other things as well that take place. People will get up there and they literally will give stories that aren't real. How do we know that? Because when follow-up does take place, which is rare, but when follow-up does take place, people will find out that doctors will say, no, they didn't really have cancer. They had kind of a mild form of a cancer. It was not really bad, and it was very much under control on the day that so-and-so went on stage to be healed. So there's all kinds of exaggeration going on, but the stories are being exaggerated by the preachers themselves. You get a preacher up there talking about, and this can happen in beyond the Charismatic Movement, in any place. Preachers can exaggerate because exaggeration really is effective. I was a preacher for 10 years, and I tried my hardest never to exaggerate. I think there might have been one time I exaggerated a little bit, and I apologized immediately afterwards and had to correct myself. But I did realize that exaggeration is far more powerful from a human point of view than just the straight truth. And I believe that these people are caught up with a lot of exaggeration, passing on stories that are not true, even making up stories. Exaggerated stories are number one. Number two, exaggerated history. God's generals. Take out all the negatives, the affairs. Take out, or else make them not that important. I've come to realize that if somebody is successful in healing, at least it looks like they're successful on the stage, it doesn't matter what their lifestyle is like. We will fill in the gaps and make sure that person looks holy in the end. When you have a preacher who's a common drunk, when you have a preacher who has affairs, when you have a preacher who steals from his organization, his or her organization, these people we will still put on a pedestal, and we will still exaggerate their accomplishments. We will still buy into everything they do because of one thing. They are successful in that one area we consider to be healing. Now, once again, when you look at the follow-up, you're going to find out they're not as successful as you think they are. But in reality, there's a lot, most of it is completely non-successful. They're tapping into something else, which I will get into. So history with God's generals, history with building up the different names of what's going on in our community, and I'm talking about the charismatic community, such as third wave. And in 97 or something, the third wave, or in the 1990s, I'm sorry, my history fails me at this point, but the third wave happens, and that's the big thing. I think it was the 80s that this took place. nevertheless, the New Apostolic Reformation, then after that, the Second Harvest, all these different terms are big, huge events in the Christian history, in the New Apostolic Reformation history especially. You'll have people like Bill Hammond writing and talking about the Aaronic priesthood, which has been once again restored in 1948. That's big stuff. Big stuff. The Aaronic priesthood, that kind of died out. That died out when in 70 AD, when Jerusalem fell. But it's raised up again. What's 1948? Well, there's this orphanage up in Saskatchewan, Canada, and this orphanage has revival. And in this revival, the leader begins putting his hand on people to pray for them. And this is the revival of the Aaronic priesthood. Woo-hoo! And that's now reestablished. So we talk about all these big things, all these huge things, exaggerate everything to be really important and more important than they really are or really were. Titles are exaggerated. Oh, this one gets under my skin a lot. We will exaggerate. Oh, doctor, they pass out titles. Okay, start up a school. It's not accredited. Oh, we need accreditation. Oh, we'll create our own accreditation and then give accreditation to that school. So when we put it on the internet, it says we are accredited. Ooh. And then we will give out doctorates to people we like or people we think God is using. We will pass up the fact that so-and-so is having an affair because they're bringing healing. At least we think they are. Okay, or they teach like we do and do tremendous things. They have big, huge groups of people coming to see them, and they have books out there, so evidently they deserve a doctorate. Now, in the secular world, this would be called an honorary doctorate. You give them on the basis of stuff they've done without studying and without research, without getting into and going through the channels in school. That's an honorary doctorate. And if I have an honorary doctorate, I think Billy Graham had over 20. He started passing them up when people wanted to give him honorary doctorates. But if you have an honorary doctorate, you're not allowed to be called doctor, except when you're in the school that gave you that doctorate. And people in the world, most of them honor that. But not among the New Apostolic Reformation and in the Charismatic movements. There we give out these doctorates that are cheap and unaccredited, doctorates based on pretty much just garbage. And we pass on these doctorates, give them the name doctor, and then they proudly walk around, I'm a doctor, call me Dr. So-and-so, whatever. This is inappropriate. We give ourselves titles. In the New Apostolic, I don't know why I keep on saying ourselves, because I put myself in people's shoes a lot. In order to understand what's going on in the world around you, you need to sometimes put yourself in the shoes of the people you are talking about in order to better understand where they're coming from and why they're doing the things that they do. All right, so forgive me for including myself in this, but we give ourselves not only a title doctor, but apostle. Oh, you can't get any bigger than that, can you? Apostle. Doctor gives me kind of a worldly sense of pride and power and clout. But apostle, whoa, that gives me the title in the world of Christians. Prophet, if I'm called a prophet, people think back to the Old Testament and think back judgment. They think back powerful people who predicted the future with accuracy. And they begin to associate me with prophet. There's so many other ways they exaggerate. The ability of us to have power over nature. The ability of us to have power over with words. That we are able to command things, that we are able to agree together and see accomplishments. It always baffles me. Why can't they see that things aren't adding up? Things aren't working. the ability to command angels, the ability to command God. All these things are so exaggerated, out of proportion. I could go on, but generally look and see for yourself how exaggeration is so powerful and so needed and so important to this movement. Whether we're talking about faith healing or whether we're talking about the New Apostolic Reformation, especially in those movements, but throughout the Charismatic Movement. All right, this is Ted, and this is part 1 of a 2-part video. So you guys have a good one. I'll see you next time, and I'll talk about how exaggeration produces something called expectation. And that expectation is interesting. All right, we'll see you. Have a good one.